Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Stories. Do you know we've been doing this almost 300 times? That's right, it's crazy. By now you should know me, the voice, Loralyn Mears, aka Dr. LL, your host. And you know that every week we bring you amazing guests who are small business owners and entrepreneurs, figuring out all kinds of things, overcoming challenges, all that sort of good stuff. With me today is a really special pleasure because Luz Gonzalez is not only the founder of EQ Refined, she's a dear friend and business partner, and she's all about bringing clarity. Isn't that something we all need in 2026? Luz, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Loralyn. So nice to be here with you and your audience.
Well, talk to folks about EQ Refined. What does that even mean for those that are not dialed in?
So I think we've all been experienced something where you're in an office, you're in an environment where you're put together to work together, right? Fine, fair. And then there's an alpha energy that emerges. I'm taking over. I'm the leader. I have the vision. Everyone follow. Then you have a group of people that are groupthink. Oh, you're amazing. You're wonderful. Anything you say is great. But then you have that energy of the introvert or the person who's pulled out saying, how come no one's asking my opinion? How come no one's taking in my thoughts for account? Then you have the people who are like, I'm not doing anything. Make me. And then how do we make this group of individuals who don't really even know themselves know each other? So I started thinking about this when I would enter workplaces, and I saw the need for emotional intelligence because I was one of those people that I didn't see myself in any scenario or any position, and I didn't know how I fit. So I would try to fit a square peg in a square, a round peg in a square hole. And then I realized when I started building my emotional intelligence, my EQ, I started to develop who I was as an individual, build my confidence, build my assertiveness, build my communication and leadership presence. And that's when I built EQ Refined to support organizations to develop their teams with more emotional intelligence.
Got it. Now you said a key word in there. You said assertiveness. So let's bring that up. So I've had the wonderful opportunity of reading your latest book, which is Authentic Assertiveness. And I've seen the reviews. They're great. It's a really practical guidebook, actionable, simple to follow. Talk to us about what went into that in writing the book, because this is your first book. And I know not your last, there's more coming because we're working on one. It's been a while, but we're getting it out. What was that experience like, Luz, writing your first book and getting it published and holding it?
Oh my God, Laurelyn. As you know, you're someone who has been in my world now for 5 years, and we've worked together, and you've helped me publish this book. So I want to just thank you for all the work you've been. Anybody who needs help, you're the person to go to with so much. But I'll tell you, in fifth grade, I remember, when you took pictures at school and you have those pictures, there was so many pictures. When I was young, I would sign them like I was an author. But then I have this problem with dyslexia. Like I hated writing. I had too many thesis ideas. But and then I started recognizing, again, emotional intelligence. There was something in me that wanted to be given birth to. What happens when you have high EQ is you don't let something stop because of a barrier. You actually do the work of self-awareness, self-resiliency, self-management, and recognizing what skills do I have available. You become more of a problem solver. So as I was growing up in the workplaces, people were talking about, as I worked with different organizations, we talked a lot about imposter syndrome. And there's this image of what assertiveness looks like in the workplace. And what I was seeing over and over again was people putting on costumes, people not being able to be authentically themselves. In fact, I was told by a top executive of a Fortune 500 organization that she actually lost the opportunity for her career growth because one of their managers thought they were not assertive enough. But in communicating with this person, they were actually assertive in their authentic way. Their team leadership was so well run that people were innovating under her. People felt trust for this leader, and they improved in their own capabilities at work. So when I started doing a lot of research on what authenticity really meant, what assertiveness really meant, what does it look like in the workplace, I started to identify passive communicators, aggressive communicators, and passive aggressive communicators, and the difference between everything and what happens when you insert emotional intelligence.
Okay, so fair enough. And so there's guidelines there on what people should and should not do. Like you said at the beginning of the podcast, Luz, that there's such a wide mix of people in the workplace today. And a lot of people are feeling their feelings, right? On everything from, oh, politics. I'm alt left. I'm alt red. I bleed blue. I bleed red. I bleed purple, whatever it is, right? We're not going to be political on this show because everybody has the chance to vote, all that sort of good stuff. But people are very impassioned about what's happening there. And then on top of that, you've got all kinds of chaos globally going on. So there's a lot of pressure, especially for the empaths and the people that are very sensitive to what's going on around them. They're withdrawing. They're letting the people that are the aggressive communicators in the office just like, right, railroad and push everybody through. What are you advising people to do that are somewhere on that quieter side that just don't know what to do? What should they do?
That's a great question, because that was me, literally me. I was someone who wanted to be in the front of the class, but the moment people filled the class, I would want to disappear and hide. I would want to support and be of service, but never the lead position. It was very scary for me. And I realized it's because literally we're tribal. You're literally sticking out your neck and you're getting visibility. You're getting looked at. You're putting yourself at risk. But when you start to regulate your emotions, when you start to regulate the way you perceive the world changes. The world has remained the same, mind you, but you change. And you change at such a fundamental moment, such a fundamental way that all of a sudden you start to feel yourself empowered. And it's the most magical thing that you could go through. Experiment with me if you like. Let me know. But feeling a moment of powerlessness and then all of a sudden building that self-awareness and then moving across the threshold to connect with another human being and feeling that connection, there's nothing like it in a waking moment.
Now, one of the things that I've learned from you, and it's not 5, I think it's almost 6 years, but who's counting, right? Is that emotional intelligence back in the day, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I was in school, you called it tact. That's what people called it, tact, knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to say it, right? Not coming out with that angry voice or whatever, or pulling back, softening, adjusting tone, all that sort of good stuff. But one of the things I've learned from you is that, and you've said it here a couple of times already in the podcast, emotional intelligence starts with self. Getting that level of self-awareness. And what I'm seeing among so many people is that they think they're communicating effectively. Oh, I've got my Gen AI favorite tool, and oh, great, I'm communicating, I'm on tone. But they're missing part one of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness, self-reflection. Talk to us about how people can get more dialed into that, because it seems a lot of people skip over that step.
Think about the evolution of humanity, Loralyn. Think about for how long we are a race of not being able to show weakness. I have in my family line a great uncle who was brilliant, they say, knew 6 languages, was charming and handsome and tall and all of this. All of a sudden, he got polio and was put in a wheelchair. Then all of a sudden, you don't hear from this person anymore. He's hidden away. When I was a kid, not many people wore glasses. Was it that they had better eyesight back then? No, they didn't. All of a sudden, you go now into a classroom, the majority of students have glasses. Why? Because the more we've been able to think about people beyond work and labor, the more we were able to individualize human beings and what they could bring to a country, to a community, an economy, then the more we started identifying the value each human being brought. So there was no self-awareness before. It was ignore, push through the pain. But we're at a cusp in our culture where people are too self-aware without the tools to self-regulate. And this is where you're like, everything is sensitive, everything is raw, everything is scary and dangerous. Our brain is meant to protect us and to keep us alive for survival. But when everything becomes a trigger warning, be careful because you can't bubble wrap the world.
But can we bubble wrap ourselves to some extent? And I think where that answer is boundaries, right? Which begins with that level of self-awareness. Ooh, this triggers me. This is a really big hot potato for me. I need to put the wall up. I need to just really create a very firm boundary, because if I don't, I'm going to melt down, right? If I'm exposed. Is that a fair statement, that that's where the boundaries come in, when you're setting up that level of self-awareness so that you can protect yourself when you know those things are super triggering rather than just triggering?
So this is where it's all relative. And this is where I want us to be very careful, because the boundary that you're speaking of separates me. The self-awareness I'm speaking of connects me and opens me. Now, it doesn't mean it leaves me raw and bare for anyone to abuse or attack or destroy, but it leaves me open to identifying my core and my strength and understanding you're a different human being, but still we're connected in a way. And I could be aware of someone who is causing harm and choose to not be part of it. But the moment I put up a wall, a barrier, I'm choosing to not heal. And I'm still raw in pain, only in my privacy.
Okay, got it. Now, one of the things that I've also been interested in following you, seeing your posts, and you've got, I know, an upcoming webinar, workshop actually, here at the end of January, I believe, 30th and 31st.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
And you connect having this level of self-awareness, emotional intelligence with clarity. Talk to us about how those dots connect.
Okay. So I connect so much to individuals who are not clear because I was not clear. I am only in this position now because I was hungry. I was hungry to find answers, and I had the privilege of time and money to educate myself. Had I not had this education, I'd still be floating, filling gaps. And so I will let you know that as when I was young in my 20s, there's this big question as to why. Why was I repeating patterns? Why was I in this situation again? Why was I not feeling fulfillment? And I know this from a lot of other individuals. We try to externally fill an emptiness that's within. And I'll give you a very interesting story. I was with my boyfriend. At the time, we were having a conflict, a fight, a challenge. And we went to go have coffee, and he drinks his coffee black, black, always black. But in this particular moment, he opened the sugar packet, put it in the sugar in his coffee. He opened the second packet of sugar, put it in his coffee. Then he got a third packet of sugar, opened it, put it in his coffee. He's unconscious to his actions. He's just, thinking about the situation, the conflict, the problem. And I'm like fascinated watching him. Three sugars. I said, "Are you lacking sweetness in your life at this moment?" And it's because we were having a fight. Of course, he's like, "What are you talking about?" Only later on for us to realize, wow, what are we doing externally to fill in an internal gap? And so I started to think about, where am I not moving with clarity in my life? And where am I allowing any little distraction to take me off course? And slowly, little by little, I would work with individuals and I asked them, "What are you getting from working with me?" Over and over again, people said clarity. And now more than ever, I'm recognizing focus is the second part of that word, because our focus is our biggest asset right now. And our focus today is the way we represent self-respect. Because when I'm allowing my attention and my focus to go in doom scrolling and then feel exhausted afterwards, I'm not respecting myself. If I'm communicating or eating or engaging in things that really are not in alignment with my values or my desires or my goals, I'm not respecting myself. And so, how do we honor ourselves? How do we honor our visions? And how do we move in alignment with purpose with building relationships and improving communication? So, I created Clarity and Focus, a 2-day intensive for individuals to use the focus framework that I created. And we're going to dive into building self awareness for the first day, and the second day is jumping into action.
Ooh, excellent. I know it looks so good. And as I hear you talking about this, I've got this big word above my head, which is mindfulness. To me, is it that may be the umbrella that ties the clarity to the focus, right? If you're not aware of what's going on, how can you be clear in what's happening or clear in what to do next? And if you don't have that clarity, well, you can't focus. You're like, right? You're like jazz hands, you're all over the place. So is mindfulness really the umbrella for all of this?
There's a reason people say in a life and death situation, time stood still. You've heard of that, right?
Of course.
And it's because the brain is always protecting its cognitive load, its energy. And so when you walk into a space, your brain has said, okay, you know all of this, everything is safe. But when you're in a life and death situation, it captures moment by moment by moment. That's why time stood still. How many of your moments are you giving away? So,
Mm.
yes, mindfulness is a key word because it's also not only mindfulness, am I understanding what I'm being mindful of, and then perspective. What is my previous experience of something like this that I'm creating an unconscious label on? Am I writing off people because of a preconceived notion? Am I writing off a potential opportunity because of again, a label that I'm going to be attaching to it for protecting my cognitive load, my cognitive function? So mindfulness and perspective go hand in hand with truly living clarity in focus, creating that life you want.
And I get that. I can speak from personal experience, right? Like everybody else, I've had drama, right? We've all had drama, right? All kinds of stuff. I've had family nonsense, personal level drama, professional level drama, this, that, da da da, people taking advantage of me, all the whole thing, right? Like everybody else, pretty much. And it really took me 2024 to realize how burnt out I was and how all of these factors were starting to affect my ability to perform well. I spent all of 2025, which sounds crazy. I can't believe the year's freaking over. Like it's impossible. But I spent 2025 trying to figure out how do I get out of this hamster wheel and break these patterns and do things differently. And it really took me the whole year plus to recover mentally and spiritually to heal from all the stuff that had happened because there were a lot of hurt and pain. And I can't say I'm 100% over, but I'm in much better shape. Finally, in 2026, I've had the time to pause, to reflect what's happening, to feel it, to feel through it, to get the clarity what I need, what I want, what I don't want, and then to get that all harnessed in a way where I'm focused on not step aside and I'm going to leave bodies in my wake and go thundering through, but I'm on a path with confidence and more clarity than I've had in a long time because I've shut out those negative forces.
Right. And that's the very first F in the focus framework, which is filter out what matters. And we've been in this ride together for a couple years, like you said, almost right, 6 years. You're right. And one of the questions are that I always like to ask myself is, why are these patterns showing up again in my life? And we talk a lot about this. That's a pattern. This is a pattern. And so just recently, it happened to me maybe a year ago where I was working toward get the certification, a very highly coveted certification. And I had to be absent. But I justified it with I was there, previously I've already done this course. So it's no big deal. They called me and they said, Luz, we're so sorry because of the very strict regulations. You can't be absent, so you can't finish the certification. We want you. And this was the interesting part. They spoke to that part of my brain that felt rejected. They spoke on the opposite. They said, "We want you. We want you to finish. We want you on the team, etc." But that part of my brain said, "They're rejecting me. They don't want me, etc., etc." And I had to tell myself, "No," but they said they did. So I had to pause, and it was one of the first times I really paused and said, "Okay, if everything happens for a reason, people love to say everything happens for a reason. Why? Why? Why does this happen?" So just getting really real and raw and vulnerable. Okay, what is this here truly to teach me? And it was a loophole, a way of being able to see into myself how, even though they spoke saying, "We want you," how that part internally felt rejected, not wanted, discarded. And it was an opportunity, a safe opportunity for me to start dissecting, like you just said, the preview of the past and seeing patterns and how I would allow that part of me to then affect my decisions moving forward, my communications, even my interactions with some people. So it was a very interesting way to really start to bring clarity into focus moment by moment. And that's what I do with some of the with workshops and seminars that I do.
Do you think it takes age and introspection or loss and failure to drive people to the state of being where we are focused on what we need to do because we've taken the time to pause, reflect, digest, and go, okay, that was the pattern. I'm not going to do this anymore. Going forward, I'm doing this. So which is it? Is it age and introspection, or is it more of loss and failure?
Jane Fonda said when she turned 60, she realized she was in the third act of her life. I loved that saying because I started looking at my life. And in my 20s, I mean, in my teens and 20s, I was always very curious of the afterlife, of the beyond. They call it beyond the veil, beyond this illusion of the world. And in my language was always more energetic, more spiritual, more frequency based. That's why I couldn't understand timetables and, reports and etc. I spoke in a different language. And so in my 20s, it was about that, but it was still that I have all the time in the world.
Right.
And then in my 30s, 40s, I fell to your point. Life is not linear. You don't have one fall and now everything is wonderful. You're going to be getting challenges, but how do you see it? What's your mindset when you get it? Do you say, "Oh, another one. I can't believe it. It's not supposed to happen." Or are you like breathing and saying, "Okay, if this is a lifelong journey, continued learning, thank you for this opportunity to learn this while I still have whatever I have." And so that was my 30s and 40s. And now I'm entering my 50s. And now I'm learning different challenges, hormonal challenges, which whatever audience you have out there, men and women, there are phases of your life. So I've dealt with people in their 20s who are so curious and hungry and want to learn and understand, and in their 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond. And so there's two ways to learn and grow. You either learn and grow through trust or through pain, like you said. Yes, exactly.
That just
Learn
popped in there.
Learn and grow through trust or through pain. You're the one who decides. There's people who will only finally get the change or the help they need when they can no longer do or say or be blank. And so it's
I,
up to you.
and I see that a lot. I also like to study different religions, philosophies, things like that. And with Scientology, it's anchored in ruin. You
Mm,
cannot move forward and learn and be better until you accept your pattern, what has ruined you, right? Perhaps it's gambling, alcohol, what drugs, whatever it is, retail therapy, right? Now I've gone on those paths down, in the past too. And you have to realize, wow, what this is doing to me and how do I move forward? And I think it's interesting. So many cultures have that Chinese proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8, right? Very, very clear on that. So what do you think people get wrong about emotional intelligence?
great question. That it's theory. And so one of my greatest mentors, Gary Zukav, he's actually one of the people who Oprah credits to changing the trajectory of her life and her TV show because of the word intention. Gary Zukav has said in our workshops and trainings, the longest journey you'll ever take is from your head to your heart. And as you know, when you connect with loved ones or your dog, you have a dog, Maisie. When you are with Maisie, you glow, you light up. It's like a battery pack, right? Time is not relevant. It's just joy and presence, right? And that is what people get wrong when it comes to emotional intelligence. It's not about checking a box, but it's about being here, being connected, recognizing, do I feel distant from you? Do I not want to share something? Or am I sharing too much? From where? So it's really about authentic power, is what Gary Zukav talks about, creating authentic power. And the majority of humanity has not yet understood how to create authentic power. But according to what's happening now in our world, 50 years from now, the generation that's growing up, they're diving into this language. I have a grandson, he's 3 years old, and we are teaching him right now to take a breath because he is moving different directions all over the place. Take a breath, be present. And he does that with me. We go, and it's the cutest thing to see a 2-year-old, 3-year-old do something like that. But of course, he gets out of it because we're human beings and we get in the moment and we're, distracted, etc. But how many times of the day can you even notice that you're breathing? And I often ask this in my workshops. Do you even notice your breathing up till now? It's been studied that human beings take up to like 20 to 20,000 breaths in a day. Can you notice 20? That's all we're
Mhm.
asking.
That's so key. And I know I love your little grandson there, Alessandro. He's such a cutie. And of course he's going to be distracted. He's a toddler. And then if we talk about, like I said, the marvelous Miss Maisie and finding Zen and calm, right? We've got her, there she is. And, she's very, very chill with her emotional support goose right there. And it is, I think, all about that where dogs really understand energy and they're receptive to it. So I'm generally pretty calm. And so she's around me and she's like, yeah, I'm like, chill dog. I got it. Because I don't really get hyper and yell. And I think that if we took more time to think about what makes us react, like what causes us, what triggers us, and how do we respond, I think we could do a better job connecting with other people in the workplace, in our personal lives, everywhere. If we just took that moment to go, oh, how am I feeling? Why am I reacting? What's happening? Am I getting heart palpitations? Am I getting hyper? Am I turning pink? Right? We don't do that.
And I created the gain, talk about another framework. I created the gain model just for that reason, because especially in the workplace, are you seeing patterns at work? Are you constantly bullied by a boss, even though you're in different jobs? Are you constantly in creating cliques to protect yourself? Or are you thinking, I'm just here to clock in and clock out? They're not listening to me. So, where are you feeling powerless? And what we want to do is develop your emotional intelligence to make you feel powerful. I want to show you you have the power of choice, but you're unaware of the choices. No one's taught them to you. And just like Steve Jobs put out a full page ad about you're going to have to learn computer literacy to live in the future. Now, I would love to put a full page ad to say you're going to have to learn about emotional literacy to be able to live a more authentically empowered life.
As we're winding down our podcast, do you think that in this era we live in, again, we're not going to be political, but in this era we live in, that people think, emotional intelligence, that's woo woo, woke. Is that the reaction that companies have towards it?
Companies have towards it. I've worked with all people in the United States, left, right, middle, etc., people outside of the United States. And when we take away triggering words and we go deep down inside, everyone has a space that they can choose to be vulnerable in, that they can choose to be real in. And when they do that, they start to recognize whatever I'm saying is really the brain. If you have a brain, you have a bias. Your brain is creating a story for you, and it's up to you to believe it or not. And I'll tell you that when that red flag is up, you're not seeing reality because you're now triggered in a space where you heard it differently, you saw it differently, and your best bet is to regulate your emotions, especially as leaders, because your team is taking their cue from you. Now, if you can regulate your emotions and communicate from a place of empowerment and connection, there's a huge difference in what happens next. And even though people say, we don't allow emotions here, we leave them at the door. I'm like, you're right. You can get triggered at the supermarket if someone is blocking a lane. You can get triggered when the toothpaste is done, and they didn't put the cap back on. You're going to get triggered because you're breathing and you're living. Now, what do you do with that moment that is just the opportunity has just come into your lap? What are you going to do with that moment? And for people who say it takes too much energy to do this, to be self-aware, yes, it really does. But guess what? When you're not self-aware, you're literally hemorrhaging energy. That's why you're exhausted. That's why you do the retail therapy. That's why you reach that alcoholic drink. That's why you are not having that connection with your family member or your child, or you're in conflict at work and you're not living the life you want.
All right. You've got a big workshop coming, Clarity and Focus, January 30th and 31st. You've got a terrific book, Authentic Assertiveness. How and where do people find you and get a hold of you, Luz?
Thank you. So you can find me on TikTok, EQ with Luz. You can find me on Instagram, EQ with Luz. And my website is eqrefined.com. EQ, for those of you who don't know, is like IQ, but EQ is emotional awareness, emotional quotient. So when you think of emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, think of EQ refined. Let's help you refine the way you communicate and the way you connect with others.
Okay, last question, my signature question. I love this one. And I know you're a fashionista, so I'm excited where this will go. If we peeked into your closet and we looked at your footwear, and there was a pair of shoes, boots, sandals, something that personified who you, Luz Gonzalez, are, that represents your personality. You put those on, you're like, this is so me. It's just absolutely me. What are we looking at?
What are you looking at? You're looking at you know, there's so many facets to me. You you have the beautiful boot, the leather boot that accentuates height, elegance, beauty, well-craftedness, something that's lasted almost 20 years. So I like quality. I like comfort. And so I say so many things because I would love sneakers. We're living in the cold here, so I'm snuggling with warm booties. And so if you would represent me with a shoe, I would say a solid leather boot from Italy that I just bought recently, or sorry, that I bought a couple years ago. But um, universal, worldwide, it would be something that I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's just it. I know you. So you're super tall. And so you don't really need stilettos by any means.
I
And
will tell you, yes, I will tell you this. Because I live of another world, fashion has never been um, urgently important to me. Comfort and fit is more important to me. And I have friends who are like, "Oh, how could you X, Y, and Z with that?" And I want to recognize everyone has a brilliance and a vision for life. Let's accept everyone's uniqueness and what they have and what they don't have. But what I like is, yes, the long boot, high heel, leather, comfort.
there we go. So with that, let's end on that note, the high note. where it is all about recognizing the differences in each other, accepting people for who they are, recognizing none of us is perfect. None of us. Hey, people out there, you know who you are that are listening. You're not perfect. Neither am
Right.
I. Yeah, and there we go. So with that, Luz Gonzalez, founder of EQ Refined, stay tuned for her workshops on clarity and focus and her wonderful book, Authentic Assertiveness. Thank you, Luz, for being on the show.
Thank you, Loralyn, for having me. And to all your audience, thank you so much for listening. Think about how much does clarity and peace matter to you. And if you haven't had classes similar to this, think about joining us.